Good evening and welcome to the 2017 debate for Democratic candidates for the 3rd Essex State Representative seat recently vacated by Brian Dempsey. I am Bill Cox, the chair of the Haverhill Democratic City Committee. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the City Committee, by Haverhill Community Television, and WHAV. The debate is being carried live on HCTV Channel 22, live streaming on their Facebook page and WHAV 97.9 FM. Before we get to the debate, on behalf of the Democratic City Committee, let me express our sincere gratitude to Representative Brian Dempsey. He served our city for over 26 years on Beacon Hill, becoming the chairperson of the House Ways and Means Committee. We remain very proud of his service and dedication to the people of Haverhill. And now, on to tonight's debate. First, let me introduce our panelists. We have Frank Novak of HCTV, Linda Lankowski, an active member of the Haverhill Democratic City Committee, Joe LeBlanc, the vice chair of the Haverhill Democratic City Committee, and Tim Coco of WHAV. The rules of tonight's debate are as follows. There will be 2 rounds of questioning. The first round, each panelist will ask a question for both candidates to answer, and the candidates will have up to 2 minutes to answer. A panelist may ask the moderator for a follow-up question, and both candidates have 30 seconds to answer a follow-up question. Candidates may ask the moderator for one 30-second rebuttal to each panelist's question or follow-up. That's the first round. The second round, each candidate will take questions posed by the audience. They came tonight, they wrote them on cards, and they've been provided to the panelists, or they were submitted in advance on the Haverhill Democratic City Committee website. Audience and HDCC website questions have been randomly distributed to the panelists, who will decide which questions will be asked to save time and to avoid duplicate questions. There will be no follow-up questions in the second round. We would ask that our audience hold all applause until the end of the debate, as it will limit the time the questions the candidates can be asked and the time they have to respond. However, there is one exception, and that is now. I'm very proud to introduce the 2 Democratic candidates for the 3rd Essex State Representative seat, Paul Magliocchetti and Andy Vargas. Tonight's seating arrangement and the order of opening statements was determined by ballot order. So, first, for a 2-minute opening statement, Paul Magliocchetti.
It's a great pleasure to be here this evening in this amazing new Haverhill landmark that is a testament to the importance of experienced, passionate leadership on Beacon Hill. Thank you, Bill Cox and the Haverhill Democratic City Committee for hosting this event. And also, I thank everyone in the audience for taking the time to be here for such an important election. I am Paul Magliocchetti, and I'm running to be Haverhill's next state representative. Haverhill is my home. I'm the son of dreamers, and I have lived here my whole life. My parents came to Haverhill more than 60 years ago as immigrants, like so many others do today. They had nothing more than a suitcase, a strong work ethic, and dreams of a better life. They instilled in me their work ethic and their strong commitment to family and community. They taught me that a community is more than a place. It is a people in whom you invest and work with. I grew up in Haverhill, and I attended the Haverhill Public Schools. After college and law school, I returned home to own and operate a small machine shop with my father, and I currently practice law in Haverhill. For almost 30 years, I've invested in Haverhill, created jobs for Haverhill residents, and supported local organizations. I have served on the Haverhill School Committee for the past 8 years. I have been a youth soccer, baseball, and hockey coach, and I have served on the board of directors on many local nonprofits. I am currently the chairman of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce and chairman of Bethany Communities that serves our senior community. I would like to continue to serve the city as your next state representative. Haverhill is my home, and it's your home too. I hope that I can earn your trust and that we can stand together in this election, because our next state representative will need a united Haverhill for support on Beacon Hill. I respectfully ask for your vote for Paul Magliocchetti on the October 10th Democratic primary.
Thank you very much. Andy Vargas.
Thank you, Bill, and good evening. I want to thank the Haverhill Democratic City
Audience.
Committee and all of our panelists here tonight. This is an important moment, a pivotal moment for the city of Haverhill. Chairman Brian Dempsey has been delivering for the city of Haverhill since he went to Beacon Hill at age 23. He leaves Haverhill, he leaves his chairmanship in a much better place. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your service to this beautiful city. My story is the story of so many of us here in Haverhill. It's the story of parents who came here because they sought opportunity for the next generation, because they thought that by coming here and working hard and instilling the values of hard work, integrity, and compassion for our fellow Americans and Haverhill residents, that we could build a better community and build greater opportunity for the generations to come. And because of those values that my family instilled in me, I was able to attend Haverhill High and later Boston University, where I was able to embark on a journey of public service that led me to Beacon Hill, the U.S. Embassy in Madrid, the White House, and later a run for city council here. I proudly represent you here in the city council as a strong advocate for education, financial transparency, economic development, and public safety. During my day job, I work for an organization called Entrepreneurship for All, where we help foster inclusive entrepreneurship, which allows early-stage entrepreneurs and small businesses to create jobs in our community. Through the organization that I work for, we've created 451 jobs in the region over the past couple of years, and I'm proud to be part of such a great organization. This election, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot that's important. This election is about who we are as a city. This election is about the values and who we intend to be. This election is about who can deliver for Haverhill. It's about who can mitigate the loss of Brian Dempsey. It's about who has walked the halls of Beacon Hill in the past. It's about who has coalitions already established on Beacon Hill. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the new chairman of the Ways and Means Committee and several other state legislators, but I'm most proud to have the endorsement of the majority of the city councilors here in Haverhill who have seen my work ethic, who can advocate for that work ethic, and know that I'll bring that work ethic to Beacon Hill to work for you.
Thank you. Now let's get to the questions. First, we're going to start with a question from Frank Novak.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just, Frank, if I can for a minute, because one thing that we didn't, I'm just realizing that we didn't sort of figure out is the order of answering the questions. So why don't we go in reverse order that we started? We'll have Andy answer the first question, Paul will get the second crack at it, and then we'll just keep flipping as we go through. Go ahead, Frank.
That's fine. Every year, there's a growing number of voters declaring their independence from the Democratic and Republican parties and voting as independents. Since you will be crossing the aisle in bipartisanship to pass legislation to benefit Massachusetts and Haverhill, what is the difference between a Democrat and a Republican?
Well, thank you, Frank. I'm glad you asked that question because I've been a lifelong Democrat. Not because we are perfect as a party, because we certainly are not, but because the Democratic Party represents the values that are most closely aligned to the values that my parents gave me. The Catholic values of looking out for each other, the values of knowing that if my neighbor is doing well, that means my family is doing well. So I am a proud Democrat knowing that this is the party that fights for working people. I'm a proud Democrat knowing that this is the party that fights for health care, that achieved health care, and I will continue being that strong Democrat. For me personally, I agree that we need to look at bipartisan efforts to address some of our toughest issues because what's at stake is too important. I'm more than willing to work with a well-intentioned governor and Governor Baker and several other legislators across the aisle. But I want to make one thing very clear. The Democratic Party is the party that best represents working people and average Haverhill residents today, and I'm proud to be a Democrat and always will be.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the question. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whoever goes into this office at Beacon Hill needs to be able to build coalitions with other people, be able to cross the aisle if necessary. We do have a Republican governor. Both of us are going in as Democrats. My parents have been lifelong Democrats, and I've been a Democrat for quite a while now. I believe that many of the issues and challenges that face the city of Haverhill are also issues and challenges that face other communities in the Commonwealth. And I think we can capitalize on these common grounds, and they will help us advance policies that other freshman legislators might not be able to advance. You know, for instance, one example would be the fact that we're a border community with New Hampshire. One of the first things that I would do is reach out to all of the leaders and the legislators from all the border communities and form what I've been calling a border caucus. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, our interests will be the same. Our issues are similar with the impacts of being on the border with New Hampshire. We also have other communities that are on the borders with Rhode Island and Connecticut. They would also be part of this caucus. So all of a sudden you're aligning with a number of legislators and leaders so that you can advance the policies and the laws that will benefit the people in the city of Haverhill. And that's what I intend to do as soon as I get elected to this office.
Thank you. And now a question from Linda Lankowski.
Gentlemen, while I applaud the amazing rehabilitation occurring in downtown, I'd like to reference an editorial in the Eagle Tribune, A Tale of Two Cities by Jane Thiefels. She compared and contrasted the revitalization of downtown with the poorer socioeconomic outlying areas. As a clinical social worker, I did outreach to those areas and can attest to many empirically deplorable conditions. Between the loss of Brian Dempsey and the Trump administration's cutting the annual block grant of about $750,000, how do you intend to argue for reinstatement of those funds on Beacon Hill?
And the first answer will come from Paul.
Thank you. And I just answered part of that with my border caucus idea. And the other group that I would align with, that we would immediately have a connection with, are the gateway communities. It's about building coalitions, building consensus among people that have similar interests and similar issues. Once you make that connection, then you can start to develop laws and bills, get ideas from the local community agencies that will benefit the city of Haverhill. I believe that Haverhill has a business community with untapped potential that is ready to explode. We have a significant base in advanced manufacturing, technology, and what could be a thriving downtown and retail restaurant district. We need to capitalize on these things, and that's how you're going to help improve the situation for everyone. I've owned and operated a business in the downtown area for almost 30 years. My extensive business experience, together with my close relationships with other area businesses, make me uniquely qualified to advocate for our city and negotiate incentives and opportunities to take advantage of our potential. I believe that many of the issues and challenges that face the city of Haverhill, as I've said, are similar to issues and challenges that face other communities. And it's about getting together with these other leaders, working together with them for common causes, and get these policies and get these bills passed through the legislature so it benefits Haverhill and the other communities that are similarly situated.
Andy.
Thank you. Linda, I'm glad you asked the question. CDBG funding has been one of the main concerns of so many nonprofits here in the city of Haverhill and across this country. I was proud a few months ago to have the city council and the mayor together sign a letter to advocate for that funding not to be cut, and we'll continue to do just that. When it comes to economic development and empowering those that need some assistance, we know that the best way to do that is with jobs, frankly. And right now here in Massachusetts, there are 200,000 job openings. Many of those job openings are in advanced manufacturing. This won't solve all of our problems, but it's a place to start. And that we need to make sure that Haverhill residents are prepared with the training, the education, and the skills that they need to fill those jobs, because they're high-paying jobs for our residents. Additionally, when it comes to revitalizing a community, I know a little bit about that because of my day job at Entrepreneurship for All. 59% of the entrepreneurs that come through our program are unemployed. 70% are women. And so we know exactly what it takes to fuel the hopes and dreams of individuals that have a future, have a destination that they want to get to, but just need some mentorships, need some assistance and access to capital to help them start their businesses. So in short, I think we need to look at workforce development to fill some of these 200,000 jobs that are open. We need to fuel the hopes and dreams of small businesses and local entrepreneurs. And we need to make sure that we're looking out for CDBG funding and other sources of revenue that are threatened to be cut by the administration in Washington, but frankly, even here in Massachusetts.
Thank you. The next question will be from Joe LeBlanc.
Hello, gentlemen. The question I have is about education. Since the 1993 education reform law, our state has improved student achievement. Our schools now outperform the rest of the country and just about every place in the world. More than half of our workers now are college graduates, yet we're not doing so well yet in Haverhill. What will you do as state rep to help our schools?
This one go to me.
That would be yours, Ian.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. I think Paul and I both share that education is a top priority for both of us in this campaign. I start with looking at the investment that we're already making here in Haverhill. Within the past 10 years, we went from being ranked 159th in per pupil spending to now being ranked 308th. What does that tell us? What kind of message does that tell to our teachers? That 90% of school districts invest more in education than Haverhill does. What kind of message are we sending to our students and our staff? And that's not to say that throwing money at a problem is going to solve it, but when you've got facility issues, when you've got textbooks that haven't been updated in more than 10 years, I think it's okay to invest in our education system, which ultimately will make our home values go up. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Mass Teachers Association that was proud to endorse me, and I'm proud to say that I stand behind our teachers. My wife right here is a teacher, and I know the struggles that teachers undergo. I've seen it firsthand, and I'll never again say, at least you get the summers off, because that's the least they deserve. Finally, on Beacon Hill right now, they're undergoing foundation budget review, which looks at the formula for which Chapter 70 and other funding streams come to districts. We need to make sure that Haverhill has a seat at that table and making sure that that formula accurately represents the needs of our community. And with the relationships I've already established on Beacon Hill, I'll be sure to be at that table advocating for Haverhill.
Paul, your response.
Sure, I've been fighting for education funding for the past 10 years. That's how I first got involved with politics. And one of the things I'm most proud of on the school committee is I was the one that lobbied with Brian Dempsey, together with Jim Scully, to get all-day kindergarten for all our children in the Haverhill Public Schools. People might remember, we didn't have that before 2012. And I was one of the impetus to get that moving. We have amazing teachers and families in our schools, and there are many programs in our schools that result in achievements for our students. I believe that early childhood education matters. Class size matters. Utilizing educational resources in a community is important, and that professional development matters, and that due to the makeup of our city, intervention at home is necessary, and that education is about what happens in the classroom between a teacher and a student. As a parent and school committeeman, I've spent the last 10 years fighting for all-day kindergarten for all, lower class sizes, cooperation among our high school, Whittier Tech, and Northern Essex Community College, professional development for our teachers and staff, support for our children in the classroom and at home, including interventionists like social workers that are needed to deal with families that are struggling with mental health issues and the opioid crisis. On Beacon Hill, I will bring my knowledge and experience of being on the school committee for the past 8 years to fight for changes in the Chapter 70 funding formula to include pre-K and kindergarten in the formula, as well as remedial reading programs to help get all of our children reading at grade level by grade 3. Incentives for our high schools, vocational schools, and community colleges to continue to work together. And assistance for communities like Haverhill to utilize social workers and family outreach programs to assist with abuse, mental health, and the opioid crisis.
Thank you, Paul.
I do have a question.
Joe has a follow-up question?
You've been throwing all kinds of things at us here, and there are things I say, yes, yes, yes. Early childhood ed is an obvious yes, but I'm wondering what we can hope to see from you in the short term in terms of helping our schools. And I just point out the fact I can head across to Bradford L, where the test scores, and it's not all about test scores, but the test scores are just about where I would expect them to be. And yet I could head across to the poorer parts of town and I'd find test scores that are just about some of the worst in the entire state. That's a short-term crisis. So I'd like to know how we can work at that short-term crisis as well as what you could do as state rep in the longer term.
So let's consider the same order. So Andy, you'll go
Great.
first.
Joe, thank you for that follow-up. I think first and foremost, there's no denying we need another school in the city of Haverhill, given the circumstances of our facilities, the overcrowding. The first thing I would do is go straight to the MSBA and work closely with other state legislators that have a vested interest in improving public education across the region. The other point that it's important to mention is that sometimes it's great to talk the talk on education, but we need to be able to say no and stand firm. Here in the city of Haverhill, during this last budget, Paul and I agreed that we needed a dropout prevention coordinator in the budget, and I asked for his support on that. He voted yes for the school budget. And expected me to carry his weight on the council side. We still voted no.
That's our time.
That's it. All right. Well, that's
our time. Paul, you have a chance to respond.
Sure, I did support Mr. Vargas. He wasn't able to get the consensus on the city council. That being said, I didn't want just a dropout counselor. We need social workers. We need at least 10 social workers in the district to go out and reach out to families that are dealing with significant issues. And that's what we need to do in the short term. We do need to deal with our class size issues in those poorer districts, like you said. I've already been trying to get temporary classrooms next to those schools to help deal with that issue, because we need the space, and then we need to fill the space with the teachers. But at the end of the day, until we reach out to the homes and we reach
That's
out to the
time, Paul.
families and get them to understand the value of education,
Paul.
we're always going to have a problem.
The next question is from Tim Coco.
Thank you. State tax income consistently over the last few years, despite experts' best projections, keeps missing its mark. We're possibly $1 billion off projections now for this fiscal year. Several groups have come together and the legislature approved putting on the ballot next year a 4% surtax on annual incomes, so-called millionaire tax. Would you have voted to place the question on the ballot? And how will you personally vote when that question is on your own ballot?
I think Paul's answering first this time.
I have no problem putting any initiative on a ballot. I think that we live in a democracy and we have to allow people to vote on issues like that. Before you do something like that, however, you really have to look at what you have, what you already have within the system. We have a $41 billion budget. 40% of that $41 billion budget is going for healthcare costs. We have to deal with this problem. That's a big part of the reason why we don't have funding for a lot of these other programs and why we need these additional taxes. Once you deal with the problems you already have, and once you find out where you actually are financially, then if you need the additional tax, I think you can make a stronger argument to the people as to why you do. Now, recently, we just passed with the marijuana law. We're expected to get an additional $83 million in revenue next year on the sale of medical marijuana. The year after, we're expected to get an additional $200 million in revenue. This is a significant amount of money. So that is a new revenue stream that we didn't have before, and we have to factor that into the current calculation. We also have to take a look at our sales tax. We have to take a look at a lot of other revenue sources within the city and also what we're spending the money on. We got to make sure that the money that we're spending is going to the programs and to the resources that people actually use and that they need in a community like Haverhill. So I think you have to take all this into consideration before you go up and you add taxes on people.
Andy, your response.
Great. I agree with Mr. Magliacchetti in that we need to have a deep dive into the state budget and how we're spending things now, but I think it's pretty clear for most people that we are $800 million under in our projections for revenues here in the state of Massachusetts. And with the fair share tax, let's be clear about what we're talking about. We're talking about taxing every dollar after $1 million that you make. And so I don't think I don't think we should be banking on marijuana for our revenues and our economic development policy. I think we should look at the fact that several other states in the United States have made sure that everybody is paying their fair share. And I don't think it's too much to ask for when we have crumbling infrastructure, crumbling transportation, schools, and various needs that are only costing us more in the long run by not addressing them now. So I would favor putting it on the ballot, and I would favor it if it came before the legislature, because the costs of not addressing the issues that we have right now are only costing us more over time.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is, because we have enough time for each of the panelists to ask one more question, we're going to do away with the follow-up questions and the rebuttals. I'm going to give each of you 1.5 minutes to answer one of their questions. Then we're going to get on to the audience questions. So I want to make sure we have plenty of time for that. So first question, Frank Novak.
On October 10th, the voters of the city of Haverhill will go to the polls in a special primary election to choose one of you to do battle in the final election on November 7th against the Republican challenger, Sean Toohey. There will be an expectation for the one of you not winning the primary to support the other in the final election. In that event, what good things would you have to say about the person sitting next to you who is your opponent today, but who you will be supporting in the final campaign in November?
Andy, aren't you lucky you get to answer that first?
Oh, look,
Rain the praises.
I know. Campaigns can get difficult at times, but I think the beauty about our democracy is that we live in a civilized democracy, at least most of the time. And you know, Paul has served the city of Haverhill on the city council for, school committee. I think I upgraded you. I'm sorry. No, he served on the school committee and been an advocate for many in the community. And so, in addition to his law practice, I think you know, he's a fine gentleman, and he comes from a great family and a great wife.
Paul, your response.
Well, thank you. Well, Mr. Vargas is an eager young man, and he reminds me a lot of me when I was his age. You know, and I think he's done a great job on the city council, and he stands for a lot of things that we all should be proud of, and we should all stand for. At the end of the day, I think we really have to look at the experience and the qualifications of the candidates, and I hope that that becomes the basis of who we choose in this election.
Thank you. Next question, Linda Lankowski.
Not to be a name dropper, but I was told by Representative Linda Dean Campbell that Brian Dempsey had the ear of Governor Baker. How can you compensate for that loss of direct connection?
Paul, I think you have the first response on this one.
All right, thank you. Well, again, I think that the issue is how I answered the question before. The best way to get the attention of the governor is to get the attention of your fellow legislators, and you have to make that connection and that correlation. With regard to Governor Baker, he's really a moderate where he stands on the Republican Party. So, you know, you have to make the connection with him, but he's also very interested in what happens in the city of Haverhill. The city of Haverhill is in a unique position. We have, by census, we have 60,000 people. A lot of people feel we have as many as 80,000 people. I do agree with the governor and some of his initiatives. For instance, I was just at the ribbon cutting at the new Machine Technology Center at Whittier Tech, and that program, we received the grant from the governor, and that was a connection between Whittier Tech, Northern Essex Community College, and Magellan Aerospace. That was exactly the kind of connection that I've been talking about in this campaign, where we have to get our educational institutions together with our businesses, and then we're helping our students, we're helping our community, we're helping our advanced manufacturing, and those kinds of programs can lift the whole thing. I have an immediate connection with the governor on that. I ran a machine shop. I still have a close business relationship with a lot of the advanced manufacturers in the area. So I think through that, I have that initial connection, and I can build on that with the governor.
Andy.
Thank you. Again, as we mentioned before, this is going to take a coalition of state legislators on Beacon Hill to ensure that Haverhill still stays at the top of the priority list, or at least pretty high up there. And I'm proud to have the endorsement of the new chair of the Ways and Means Committee that took Brian's place. And we've already begun to discuss issues like the hail debt, the advanced manufacturing, and several other issues that Haverhill is facing. But in addition to the chairman, I've also built already endorsements in a coalition of 5 other representatives and senators, and that's what it takes to govern. You've got to build coalitions, and I think I've demonstrated that on the city council by having the majority of the council back me. It takes someone who knows how to build relationships, can build on existing relationships, and knows how to find common ground when we're not always on the same page. And so I would be proud to bring the same work ethic that I have on the council and working together with folks who think differently to move the city forward.
Very good. And the next question, Joe LeBlanc.
Thank you. Immigration, gentlemen, could you please comment on the role it has played in Haverhill's and even your own past, present, and future? Why is this topic so controversial today, since immigrants typically outperform our expectations? Here's your chance to clarify your position on this sometimes controversial question.
Thank you very much, Coach Murray.
Right.
Well, I'm glad that this question came up, and it's an important question. And the reality is that this has only come to the forefront of this campaign because some campaigns want to score political points for an issue that we're actually not that divided on. The vast majority of people that I speak to, the vast majority of Haverhill residents agree with the very simple notion that if you're here involved in criminal activity, if you're here involved in violence, in gangs, in drugs, you should absolutely get deported. There is no question about that. However, if you are a mom and dad trying to raise a family like the rest of us, if you're a productive member of society, the reality is that we have a limited and finite amount of public safety resources. We have 94 police officers on staff. Because 5 of us city councilors voted no on the budget, we were able to add 5 more onto our police department. And the reality is when you talk to officers, not only here but across the state, they don't want to focus their time on deporting moms and dads. It's just the reality of the situation. They want to focus their time on going after the drug dealers, the criminals, those who are violent offenders and pose a threat to public safety. Frankly, you know, this issue, again, has only come up because some politicians and some media outlets make money or score points off of it. We need to be resource-focused and pragmatic. And it's a federal issue that both parties, frankly, have failed to address, Congress and the president. But frankly, I'm here to talk about Haverhill issues. This issue has come up because my family are the new Italians, the new Irish. But we're here, and we're going to work hard. And I'm here to talk about issues that affect Haverhill. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Paul, your response.
Well, your question is a subtle way of talking about sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities comes up every day when I go knocking door to door. Sanctuary cities has no clear definition, by the way, if you research it. It means different things to different people. But I believe it's an ill-advised attempt by states to deal with a very complicated federal issue. The current legislature is attempting to deal with it with what they call a Safe Communities Act, Bill number 1305, that has been signed by Mr. Vargas's friends in Boston and is currently in committee. I do not support it, and I will not vote for it. It is the job of local law enforcement to focus their resources on keeping people safe. This we agree. One of the many problems with the bill is that it attempts to create a distinction between criminals and undocumented immigrants. However, this line is blurred and may result in public safety being compromised. Even though I do not support Safe Communities Act, does not mean I'm anti-immigrant. My opponent mischaracterized a quote in an article and made a false assertion that I side with Trump on immigration. This is absurd and a desperate attempt to solidify his voter base at my expense. I'm a first-generation American, and both my parents are immigrants. My mother's a dreamer. Both she and my father followed a path to citizenship. All of my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and many cousins are all immigrants. They're here in the audience today. They all followed a process. I will work tirelessly with our Washington delegation on comprehensive immigration reform that makes sense, ensures
We're going to have the next question
and
from
allows
Tim
dreams
Coco.
to
Go
come
ahead,
true
Tim.
for today's dreamers.
No, I said we were not going to do that. I know we went over. Paul, please, I'm going to ask you when the sign comes up that says stop in front of you, when I say stop 3 times, please stop. Okay? No, we're going to go on to the next question because I think the real important questions, although I admire our panelists and they have some great questions, the real questions we want to get to are the audience questions. So we're taking up time and taking time away from that. Let's go to Tim Coco now.
This might be a natural follow-up to Joe's good question. There's a House Bill 2231 filed by Representative Michael Moran that would allow state colleges and universities to continue extending in-state, that is, resident tuition rates to students previously covered under DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Do you support that House bill?
Paul, you're first.
I think I'm a supporter of DACA. I think DACA is good, was a good move by President Obama. I support dreamers. You know, like I said, my mother was a dreamer. We need to give them an opportunity at a better life. But we still have to make sure that these families go through a process and that they are allowed to stay in this country. But they have to be allowed to stay here the right way. They have to go through a certain process like everyone else. I don't agree with President Trump that we should round up and deport 11 million people. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. You can't do it. It doesn't make any sense. We need comprehensive immigration reform in Washington. I mean, you can do this triage treatment at the state level. And I'm sure that he and I will agree on certain things and disagree on certain things that we would support. However, at the end of the day, this issue has to be addressed in Washington. And when one of us gets elected, we have to work closely with our Washington delegation and make sure the interests of the residents of Haverhill are protected. And we have to make sure that all the residents are protected and that we we bring these immigrants out of the shadows. We respect them. We give them the dignity that they deserve to be in this country, to realize their dreams like many of our forefathers did before us.
Thank you. Andy, your turn.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Magliocchetti on supporting DACA. It's a bipartisan issue that members of both parties have agreed upon. But the reality is that it's nice for us to say we agree and we support Dreamers and we like them. But it's another thing to not stand up for them, to protect them, to make sure that they aren't targets of ICE and that ICE and our local law enforcement are focusing solely and exclusively on violent criminals. And the bill that Mr. Magliocchetti referenced to was grossly mischaracterized in that it's exactly what I mentioned in my previous statement, in that all it does is says we should be focusing all our law enforcement resources on violent criminals instead of going after DACA recipients, which Mr. Magliocchetti supports. But the mischaracterization of that bill is a trend that's been ongoing via several media outlets, several politicians that use fear-mongering as a way to gain votes and score political capital. But I know that Haverhill residents and Haverhill voters are much smarter than that. And I know that together we will achieve a brighter future for Haverhill, for all of us in Haverhill, and not give in to the fear-mongering.
Thank you. And now we're going to go to the audience questions. The first audience question from Frank Novak.
Audience question is, what can you do to make higher education more affordable for all?
And I think I lost. Who answered the?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm glad this question came up as well because I still got student loan debt and so does my wife. We're sitting on a bunch of it. There are a couple of things we need to do in that. I think universities in we have some of the best universities in Massachusetts. However, we also have universities that have presidents earning millions and millions of dollars. And for me, when you have a student population that every year is asked to pay now at BU over $60,000 a year to have an education, that's an issue to me while their president, our president at BU makes millions of dollars. And I'm proud of my education at BU. But that being said, if they are a nonprofit, if these universities are nonprofits, the focus should be on student education and making sure that access to that education is affordable and possible for anyone. And again, I'm not talking about handouts because I worked my way through BU. I made sure I worked 3 jobs and I took student loans. And again, this is also an issue that at the federal level that we need to make sure that Pell Grants are protected. So I will be a strong advocate for ensuring that higher education, whether public or private, is affordable, accessible for all that are willing to work hard for it. Thank you.
Paul, your answer.
One of the things that they teach you in law school is that when you're reading laws, you can't take certain clauses or phrases within a law in a vacuum. You have to read it in the context of the entire document. Now, this applies to 2 things. Number one, with the prior question that dealt with Bill 1305, I disagree with Mr. Vargas. It doesn't simply say what he said it simply says. It's much more comprehensive than that, and that's why I don't agree with it. I'd be more than happy to get into that in greater detail. You can schedule an appointment with my office. I'll give him a free consult.
Make sure I'm there.
That being said, when it comes to funding college education, the same principle applies. We have to look at what's in there right now. What are the laws in place? What are the regulations in place? How are we doing this? What is the state currently doing? Let's take a look at the laws that are out there. Let's work with the language. Let's incorporate the kinds of people that it applies to. And I think we can do a better job at reducing the costs of our public colleges. UMass Lowell, UMass Amherst. The UMass Lowell is going in this building right here. I mean, there are so many things that we can do. And he's right, we do have to do something to control the costs of all colleges and universities. Their tuitions are going up 10, 12% a year when GDP and other numbers are only going up 2 and 3%. It just doesn't make any sense why the numbers are going up exponentially greater than everything else in the nation. So, but again, that's also more of a national issue than it is the state issue. But there are things that we can do on Beacon Hill to control costs with our state colleges and then hopefully work together with the private colleges to do the same thing.
Thank you very much. Our next question, audience question from Linda Lankowski.
What are your plans to help the city to combat the current crime increase?
And Paul, you'll start off on this one.
Sure. Well, it's interesting you say that because I spent the weekend walking the acre with Sheriff Coppinger, and we were talking about this a lot. I mean, we all know, we've been reading in the paper, there's a significant gang issue in the city of Haverhill, that the police department is doing everything they can to deal with it. Now, one of the issues that we have is the fact that the police did a study which said they needed 130 police officers, and they only have 94, I believe, is the latest number. So we really have to do something with minimum manning requirements. We got to make sure that the police are properly staffed, equipped, and trained to deal with the issues that they face today. There has to be ongoing training for all of our first responders to deal with the mental health issues and the opioid epidemic. When we were walking the neighborhood the other day, we got out of the vehicle, and as we're walking down the street, a woman came walking by. She apparently resided at one of the shelters. We were talking to her, that's what she said. And then another vehicle came down and stopped, and the person got out of the car and started yelling at this woman that we were talking to. And we actually resolved the situation. Thank God I had the sheriff there with me. But, you know, it is a problem neighborhood, and there are significant, this was an issue of a woman that had mental health issues, that had done something to upset someone else that made them upset. Luckily, we were there to resolve it. But if we weren't, that whole situation might have escalated. So we need people to reach out into the community to help these people that need help. It's to everyone's benefit to do this. It creates not only public safety. One of the best ways to do this, by the way, is through the schools. We find out we can identify the kids that have problems, and 9 out of 10 times, we can point that problem at home. We need people that can reach out to the homes and help solve the problems there, and that will go a long way towards solving our public safety issues.
Andy, your response.
Thank you. I'm proud to support the Haverhill Police Department, which does a tremendous job with the limited number of resources that they have. Again, they have 94 officers, and an FBI study that compared similar cities and towns and populations said that we should be at 145. And that's why 5 councilors and I stood together to vote no on this budget and find an agreement and compromise with the mayor to add 5 police officers into the budget. But it's something that we'll have to do, and we'll have to seek new grants at the state level to make sure that the funding keeps coming in. And the reality is that over the course of the past couple of years, we've lost out on some of that funding. The YES grant was a youth education success, was a grant that I was a part of in high school that is no longer available. The Shannon grant, we continue to get it, but in less amounts. These are all grants that we're going to have to work together with legislators on Beacon Hill to make sure that Haverhill is at the forefront to receiving them. The other point that's important to mention is community policing, and that we want to do more of it. You know, our police department wants to do more of it, but until we have adequate staffing levels, until we have enough officers to be preemptive about crime in the community, that falls lower on the priority list. That being said, we've still, together, myself with the police department, we put on several events. One was a basketball tournament in the Mount Washington neighborhood to bring youth together, to make sure that police officers and youth continue to know each other, see each other's faces, just how it was back in the day. But we can't do more of that until we keep adding to our police department. And finally, I think we have some tough people, some difficult people that live in certain neighborhoods that we can prioritize and target, again, because we have limited number of resources in our police department, but we don't have problem neighborhoods. We have problem people that live there, because the Acre and the Mount Washington neighborhoods are beautiful neighborhoods with amazing people that are working hard to make it a better place. I think about Debbie from the Acre. I think about Keith Boucher from Mount Washington. And I think about Bianca from the Acre. I think about Heather out in Rocks Village. Haverhill is a place with beautiful neighborhoods and amazing people. We just have some individuals that we need to target to make sure that we get them out.
Thank you very much. And we'll have a next audience question from Joe LeBlanc.
Thank you. Do you favor the expansion of solar and wind energy by lifting restrictions on renewable energy and ending pipeline construction? Why or why not?
Does that go to me?
That goes to Andy.
I'm a strong advocate for solar and green energy, not only because it's the right thing to do for the environment, but it's because it's the right thing to do for our economy. Study after study shows that if we make prudent investments in green energy, not only, again, will we be providing savings for residents and homeowners, but we'll also be creating jobs here in Massachusetts. And I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Sierra Club, and frankly, I think I'm the only candidate that's talked about climate change, because there's still some folks that believe that it doesn't exist. But I'll continue to be an advocate for climate change and ensuring that solar panels are accessible to all individuals, regardless of their income. And so I'm ready to be that advocate for the environment, for solar panels, as I've done here in the city of Haverhill, and garnering support from 8 of 9 counselors to present a petition to the school committee, which ultimately, with their dysfunction, was not able to get the solar panels on Haverhill High. But I'll continue to be that advocate. I'll continue to be there to support not only the efforts that are being made to combat climate change, but to renew our economy, because this is an issue that you can address from both angles.
Paul, your response.
It's interesting that he mentioned the dysfunction on the school committee because of the 4 counselors that support Andy, 3 of them voted to put Sean Toohey back on the school committee when we had an opportunity to get someone else, and he voted the solar panels down. He was one of the reasons we don't have solar at Haverhill High School. I voted for the solar panel project. I'm in favor of all kinds of renewable energy. I think it's a no-brainer, if for no other reason than for economic reasons. Now is the time to act and to focus on replacing non-renewable energy with cleaner solutions. Massachusetts has already made strides. In 2016, the Massachusetts Clean Energy Industry Report notes that northeastern Massachusetts has the highest growth rate of clean energy jobs. This is great news. Many of the machine shops that I worked with are now involved with manufacturing components for the clean energy industry. By providing incentives, and we are not only preserving the environment, but we are creating jobs in Haverhill based on advanced manufacturing and technology. These are the areas we want to work. As your representative, I will work to bring clean energy jobs to Haverhill. We are a border community, and we can take full advantage of both being in the most prosperous area of the nation for this industry, as well as having access to 2 markets, Massachusetts and New Hampshire. We can get back at them for the sales tax. Clean energy jobs are small business jobs, with 85% of establishments having fewer than 50 employees. 61% of establishments have fewer than 10 employees. These are exactly the kinds of businesses that start up and grow to be bigger and better companies. These are the businesses that I dealt with so many years ago in the machine shop industry. These are well-paying jobs, with nearly 70% of the clean energy jobs paying $50,000 a year, almost $5,000 above the median income. This is something we all have to look into and we all have to advocate for at the state level. It benefits everyone.
Thank you very much, Paul. The next audience questions from Tim Coco.
Labor unions, and among others, have embarked on the so-called Fight for 15. Do you support a $15 minimum wage?
And that first response is from Paul.
I think that everyone should earn a living wage. I think that we need to invest in education and training so that people can go out there and earn a living wage. I'm not sure that $15 an hour is a living wage. I don't know, and this is kind of my problem when we're dealing with increasing the minimum wage. I do not have a problem with increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. However, we really got to get over that hump, and we got to get to creating jobs in an economy where people can transition off of assistance and earn living wages on real jobs. We were just talking about these jobs in advanced manufacturing and technology that can be created through our use of renewable energies and getting off of non-renewable energies. That's great, that's a start. Now we got to look at other industries like technology itself, you know, the semiconductor industry. The biggest industry coming right now, one of the biggest industries is AI. It's all about artificial intelligence. Let's invest in that. Let's get Haverhill at the forefront of that. We have Amazon looking for a new campus. And we've all read in the paper that the old Ornstein Shoe Building or the old Western Electric plant, that would be phenomenal, even if it ended up in the old Western Electric plant. Many of you in the room remember Western Electric, which became AT&T and Lucent Technologies. At one point, they were hiring over 10,000 people, many of whom built their homes in Haverhill. They built our downtown economy when we had such a vibrant downtown economy. Many of us over the age of 40 remember this. These are the kinds of things and the kinds of investments we have to make. But to answer your question, the minimum wage is not enough. We have to build an economy and an industry base that pays a living wage so that people can go to work, earn a living, and won't need any kind of assistance from the state or federal governments. And those are the kinds of policies I will fight for in Beacon Hill.
Thank you, Paul. Andy, your response.
Thank you, and I agree that we need to get folks off of assistance, but what we're doing right now is providing corporate welfare. There are companies like Walmart, big corporations that pay their employees minimum wage, but then expect us to foot the bill in providing them benefits and assistance. The way you grow an economy, the way you grow a middle class is ensuring that everybody who has a hard day's work receives an honest day's wage. It's that simple. And now, that being said, I do agree that we need to get to $15, but we need to do it in a way that's responsible to small businesses. Because small businesses are certainly being squeezed, especially ones that are making under $2 million in profits and revenues. So we need to make sure that they're at the table when we're talking about these issues. I'm proud to be endorsed by several unions, including the AFL-CIO, because they know that I'll be an advocate for working people. They know that the way to grow an economy is by having a strong middle class. That trickle-down economics has failed us time and time again. But that if we have a strong middle class that has more money in their pockets, then our small businesses will do better, and our corporations will stop receiving this corporate welfare that has beholden the government and taxpayers to footing the bill for the benefits of their employees.
Thank you very much. So we have time, I think, for one more question, one more audience question from each of the panelists. But let's try and keep our answers to about a minute, because otherwise we're going to run way over, and we're trying not to do that. So, Frank, your audience question is?
Next audience question is, if elected, will being a legislator be your full-time day job?
Andy, you had the first response.
Thank you. Absolutely. I have no other allegiance to any other job. This will be my full-time job because I recognize that it's going to take somebody who hustles for Haverhill, who's thinking about Haverhill day in and day out, no other thing. Somebody who has relationships on Beacon Hill that they can capitalize on, that wakes up every morning thinking about how they can make life better for their constituents. So I have no doubt that I will be a full-time legislator, and I will make sure that I continue to hustle for Haverhill as that legislator, as I have done on Beacon Hill, on the City Council. Whoa, let's slow down, slow down, slow down.
Paul, your response.
I am going to continue to be a partner at Sheehan Schiavone, Jutras, and Magliochetti. Fortunately, I have a great team of people at the law firm. We're the largest firm in the city. We're up to 14 attorneys now. I've already begun the transition. I have 3 associates that are working with me on all my cases. I will be committed to Beacon Hill, to serving the people of Haverhill on Beacon Hill. The way I practice law will probably change. I will manage cases, but not be involved in the day-to-day. My associates will. But, and the one thing that my wife is really upset about, I'm probably going to be taking a pay cut for this job. But you know what? She's okay with it because she knows how much I love the city of Haverhill and how much I care about everyone in this room. The people that are endorsing me are the people of the city of Haverhill, and I'm willing to go to Beacon Hill to fight for each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next audience question from Linda Lankowski.
How will you help the trash issue? Everywhere you look, there's lots of trash and hypodermic needles where children play.
And Paul, you have the first response on that.
Again, I think all these questions with public safety, with trash, this all goes back to education. We got to educate our children, we got to educate the public, and we also have to make sure that we have groups and organizations that will go around and help our highway department. A lot of these issues have to do with the resources that are committed in a city. So it really has to do with the mayor and the city council allocating enough money to the highway department to go around and make sure these things are taken care of. These are things that bother me as well. I have kids that play, and these are everywhere, by the way. These needles and this trash, it's not just in certain neighborhoods, it's all around the city, sometimes more so in the nicer neighborhoods, which are less populated. But it is an issue that needs to be addressed. I will fight for whatever legislation we can to make sure that the local community makes the proper investment in the services to take care of those kinds of problems.
Andy, your response.
Thank you. I think one of the keys to this is having strong neighborhood groups, which was a pivotal part of my campaign for city council, in that if we look at research from across the country, the way that neighborhoods have come back is not necessarily something that government has done. It's something that citizens have done in those neighborhoods. Citizens that have taken it upon themselves to spend time getting to know each other, exchanging contact information, doing neighborhood cleanups, which I've been able to participate in all neighborhoods here. That is one of the key ways that we bring Haverhill's clean streets back. Again, I think that there are also grants available at the state level that are available for cleanups, for trees planting, as we've seen from an organization called Groundwork has been able to do some great work here in Haverhill, and I will continue to fight for that grant funding that Chairman Dempsey was so successful in getting. So it's a combination of making sure that we have strong neighborhood groups that are looking out for their neighborhoods and each other, as well as fighting for the state funding that is available for cleanups and for planting trees and doing other environmental projects in our neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. Joe, final question from the audience?
Thank you. It's about jobs. Jobs and the economy are really important issues in Haverhill. How do you plan to bring more jobs here, and what is your experience in creating jobs?
And Andy, you have the first response on this.
Thank you very much. And again, I think this is a pivotal question because every day here in Haverhill, 20,000 people leave the city of Haverhill for jobs elsewhere. We have a pretty skilled workforce already, and we can do more. As I said before, my day job is working with an organization called Entrepreneurship for All. And at E4All, we know that the best way to revitalize an economy is from the ground up, and investing in early stage entrepreneurs and small businesses that already live in these communities, are invested in these communities, and aren't just going to go run somewhere else when another city or state provides a better tax incentive. So while we fuel the hopes and dreams of entrepreneurs and small businesses, we also need to make sure that our workforce is skilled to gain those 200,000 job openings that we have. And again, I know a little bit about job creation and that my organization, E4All, has created 431 jobs by just empowering entrepreneurs. Because we know, again, that the best way to grow an economy is from the ground up.
Paul, your response.
Like I said before, I've owned and operated businesses in the city for the past 30 years. I've been creating jobs for 30 years. First in manufacturing with my dad in the machine shop, and now at the largest law firm in the city. We have over 20 employees there. This is something that I'm very passionate about. Mr. Vargas is correct. We do need to invest in education. That's absolutely critical. We have to have an educated and trained workforce. And that's why I said earlier, we have to make sure that our high school, our vocational school, our community college, and our business community all work together to make sure that our students are trained and educated for the jobs of tomorrow. That's where you start. And then what we can do at the state level is that we make sure that we provide incentives for programs that force that kind of cooperation so that we have a brighter future for everyone, not only in the city of Haverhill, but for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you very much. And the final audience question from Tim Coco.
Thank you. The audience member writes, Haverhill is on the cusp of an enduring renaissance. How do you feel you can best nurture and encourage this rebirth from Beacon Hill?
Paul, you have the first response.
The renaissance that's happening in Haverhill, or the crux of it, is happening right here downtown. This is a testament to it right here, the building that we're in. And this was the final montage of Brian Dempsey and the great work that he did for the city of Haverhill on Beacon Hill. We need to keep this moving. And one of the ideas that I have is to create downtown economic districts in border communities. I want to create zones in our downtowns where we give tax relief to the restaurants and to the shops to encourage them to open and to encourage people to go down and partake in them. I think that's one of the best things that we can do. We also have to look at development opportunities in our downtowns, and we have to make sure that there are state programs, state grants, and state funding opportunities to incentivize people to build out the properties and make sure they incorporate commercial space, and then that we help them fill that commercial space. That's what's really been lacking. We've been building out commercial space, but for some reason we haven't been able to fill it. But I think that can happen with the right leadership on Beacon Hill.
Thank you very much. Andy, your response.
Thank you. I think this is a combination of a variety of things. First and foremost, housing has to be part of the component. In that the city of Haverhill, we've done a pretty good job at affordable housing, and there's more for us to do. We're above that 10% level, and we should do more and can do more. But at the same time, we need to make sure that other cities and towns are holding their weight as well. So if you're a Boxford, or if you're another community with higher incomes, we want to make sure that they are also putting in the work for affordable housing so that cities like Haverhill and other cities in the Merrimack Valley aren't pulling too much of the weight. We're all in this together, and we realize that. The second point is on education. Our home values go up when we have a strong education system. 90% of school districts invest more in education than the city of Haverhill does, and that has gone down dramatically over the past 10 years. We invest in education, we'll see our home values and that renaissance continue. And finally, as I've learned at my day job, if you invest in startups, if you provide the resources that they need, if you provide internet access and broadband beyond just Comcast monopoly here, you can start to see some great things happen. And so I think a combination of this, as well as seeking resources outside of the city and across the state, will help us continue that renaissance, not only downtown, but across the city.
Thank you very much. And it's now time for closing statements. Each candidate will be allowed up to 4 minutes for a closing statement, which was decided by a coin flip before the debate began. Andy's going to go first.
All right. Eager Andy, right? Thank you all very much for being here today and watching online. This is one of the most beautiful things about our democracy, in that we can get together, we can debate things back and forth, and we can walk out and still have a beer after, right?
Absolutely. At Battlegrounds.
That's right. This is a pivotal moment for the city of Haverhill. It's a moment where we will define who we are. We will define what we stand for, what we believe in, and whether or not we will be inspired by hope or driven by fear. It's a moment for us to decide who is going to hustle for Haverhill. It's a moment for us to decide who is going to work full time. It's a moment for us to decide who has already built coalitions on Beacon Hill that can help us deliver from Haverhill. Knowing very well the legislative process, that it's not that there are outside interests affecting this election. It's that that's how government works. You have to work together. You have to build coalitions to get things done, just as we have on the city council. And I'm more proud of the endorsements that I received from my city council colleagues, because what that speaks to is the hard work ethic that we have on the council, that I have demonstrated to them. And we don't agree on every issue, and you can ask Mary Ellen or Councilor Bill Masick on that. But we work together to move the city forward, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a concerted effort and a coalition on Beacon Hill to make sure that we mitigate the loss of a giant, of Chairman Brian Dempsey. Since he was 23 years old and he headed to Beacon Hill, Chairman Dempsey delivered so much for us. And we need to make sure that we're sending somebody else who will continue to deliver for Haverhill. So in closing, I'll say this. I will be your full-time legislator. I'm ready to hit the ground running. And I'm ready to give you my phone number to do constituent services. So you ready? 978-228-1233. Constituent services is going to be one of my top priorities, because that's what we do on a day-to-day basis as full-time legislators. I'm going to be the candidate that hustles for Haverhill. I will be the representative that will be there for you, that picks up the phone every single day without any other interest involved. I love this city. I love this place. The opportunities that Haverhill has granted to me, not only through my family, but through the teachers that I've had, through the neighborhood groups that have empowered each other and me, I feel responsible to give back to this community that has given so much for me. So let's hustle for Haverhill and define our future by what's best in each and every one of us.
Thank you. Paul, your closing statement.
I'm pretty quick myself, and I can hustle. I again would like to express my gratitude to Bill Cox and the committee for holding this debate, and to all of you in the audience for watching and giving your time for this very important election. As I said earlier, this election is one of great importance. I ask that you carefully consider your choice and that it be based on experience, passion, and leadership, because our next representative will need all of these qualities as soon as he's elected, day one. Experience is one of the most defining factors in this race. I have almost 30 years of experience as a business owner and community leader. I deal with real issues involving real people. I have been directly responsible for resolving legal issues that impact people's lives and that affect the prosperity of Haverhill businesses. Not as an intern, but as a frontline person bearing all the responsibility and getting the job done. As the owner of a small machine shop and currently as the managing partner of one of our largest law firms, I have created jobs and hired Haverhill residents. I served as an officer and director on the board of local nonprofits, and I have risen to the role of chairman on the board of directors of the Haverhill Chamber, which serves local businesses, and Bethany Communities, which serves our seniors. I have served 8 years on the school committee and almost 20 years as a youth soccer coach, baseball coach, and hockey coach, serving Haverhill's children and families. I will use all this experience, the depth of knowledge from my years of work, and my leadership skills as an employer, school committeeman, and board chairman to earn the respect of my peers and build coalitions that include more than 4 people and get resources that Haverhill needs to move forward and continue on to a brighter future. I believe in Haverhill. I believe that Haverhill has great teachers and many families that care about education. We need the state to recognize the importance of reducing class size, early childhood education, and providing support services for our teachers and families to address issues of mental health and the opioid crisis. I believe that Haverhill has a business community with untapped potential that's ready to explode. We have a significant base in advanced manufacturing, technology, and what could be a thriving downtown restaurant and retail district. In addition, we have world-class educational opportunities in Haverhill, with the latest advancements at Haverhill High School, Whittier Votech, NECO, UMass Lowell, and soon a culinary school right here in downtown. With the proper leadership on Beacon Hill, we can combine our resources of our business community with our educational community and create something very special. I will get the job done. I have owned and operated the business in downtown area for years. My extensive business experience, together with my close relationships with area businesses, the superintendent of schools, and the people of Haverhill, make me uniquely qualified to advocate for our city and negotiate incentives and opportunities to take advantage of our potential. I will immediately identify and contact legislators and leaders on border communities with the Commonwealth and build a border caucus. I will also get in touch with the legislators and leadership of other gateway cities. I will introduce ideas like sales tax incentives and tax breaks for downtown commercial districts and incentives and grants for startups to expand advanced manufacturing businesses that agree to cooperate with local schools and colleges to educate, train, and hire students. Many of the issues and challenges faced by the city of Haverhill are also issues and challenges faced by other communities in the Commonwealth. We need to capitalize on these common grounds, which will help advance policies and laws that a freshman legislator might not otherwise be able to advance. Mr. Vargas is resigned to being in the basement. I do not intend to be, and I will never allow my hometown of Haverhill to be in the basement. I understand the importance of this elected position
Thank you very
and the
much,
pressure
Bob.
that will come with the job. And that's why I ask for your vote on October 10th in the Democratic primary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I was just going to say what a great audience you were because you didn't applaud at any point during the debate. But I realize it's a lot to hold back for a long time. But thank you very much to the candidates, to the panelists, to our timekeepers. They had a tough job tonight. They did a great job, Susan Goki and Ben Hoyt. And our sponsors, the Haverhill Democratic City Committee, Haverhill Community Television, and WHAV. The Haverhill Democratic City Committee will be sponsoring a unity rally to support the winner of the October 10th Democratic primary on Sunday, October 22nd. Go to our website, haverhilldems.org, for more information, which will be provided shortly. I'm Bill Cox, Chair of the Haverhill Democratic City Committee, and don't forget to vote in the October 10th Democratic primary. Thank you very much.